repeat. Put repeat in the chat if you have been here and are a repeater. Maybe some of you are lifers. You feel like you're here every week because you love it. Okay, look at that. Repeat, 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 repeat. Why are people coming back and back, right? Back again and again, I should say. We're going to talk about that. And on this call, I want to show you the simplest, easiest, most just elementary protocol that you or anybody can follow to improve their metabolic health naturally. And in many cases, get off of the medications or get off of the diet or get off of all of the things that have been disagreeable to you heretofore. Okay. And I'm going to give you lots and lots of proof on this here in just a moment. All right. So look at all the repeaters. Now, if you've never been on one of these calls, if you're new, if this is the first time and you're not really sure what these calls are about or what the protocol is about, well, you write new in the chat. And I already see some new people tuning in here on Facebook and on the restreams. A lot of the new people, there's Natalie says new. Lots of new people are here. Okay, so if you're new, this is all going to make sense here shortly, okay? First, let me just introduce myself and what we're going to be talking about on this call. And I've got a couple of very, very special guests that I'm excited to introduce to you, okay? So including one of the top metabolic health experts in the world today is on our call tonight, and she has got a very, very interesting, awesome message prepared for you. So to begin, let me just introduce myself. This is a picture of me and of my dad. My dad meant everything to me. I mean, what does your dad or your mom mean to you, right? My dad meant everything to me. My hero. I want to be more like this wonderful man. And 8 years ago, my dad died, and he died from a completely preventable issue. All right. My dad was the greatest guy in the world, but happened to have the world's worst diet. He struggled with emotional eating. Whenever he was stressed or tired or frustrated, he would turn to food. And that is how I am wired myself and have been most of my life. My dad had a problem called insulin resistance. He was insulin resistant. We're going to talk about what that means here as we go. But in layman's terms, my dad struggled with weight control, with blood sugar control. He was pre-diabetic. He had high blood pressure. He had high cholesterol. He had psoriasis all over his skin and his body. And all of this was really, really difficult for my dad. And he would do really well from time to time on diets and programs, and he would cut out sugar, or he would go to the gym for 2 hours a day every day. And he would start off on January 1st of every year with a plan to change his whole life, right? And inevitably, within, a few weeks, sometimes a few days, he was off the program, had fallen off the wagon and was in tough shape. And so as time went on, my dad was on more and more medications. He was on, more medications than I could count. And one of the side effects of some of the drugs he was taking for his for his psoriasis, one of the side effects was colon cancer. And sure enough, my dad got colon cancer and died. When my dad got sick, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how can I save this man. I started to read, I started to study about insulin resistance, about metabolic health. And what I learned, had I just learned it a little sooner, my dad would still be alive today. And so we do these calls every week because you have a dad or a mom or a brother or a sister or somebody you love, or maybe you yourself, that is struggling with insulin resistance or some of the problems associated with insulin resistance, and you're tired of struggling. You want to stop struggling, right? Did you know that the root cause of things like obesity, things like fatty liver, things like heart disease, things like diabetes, things like even migraine headaches, PCOS for women, did you know that the root cause of these things is actually something known as insulin resistance? And if you fix the insulin resistance, oftentimes these other problems disappear. And so on today's call, and as you learn what we are doing, know this. Know that we are not interested in just treating the symptom. We are interested in going to the root and fixing the root cause of the problem. And therefore, when you kill the root, you can often kill a lot of the other symptoms, right? And that is what we're going for. That is what the protocol is about. And I will talk more about this here as we go throughout this call. But that is a basic introduction for really a setting of the table of what we're going to talk about on tonight's call. Now, by way of tradition, right? We have about 475 people or so on the live Zoom, thousands more that are watching on the restream. And every week we bring in a stranger, somebody that has been attending these calls and living the protocol that we're going to talk about and is, starting to notice some of the changes. And on tonight's call, I have a very special guest. Actually, I should say guests, plural, because they are a couple. So this is Lance and Shelby Cranny. Do I have that right? Lance and Shelby Cranny. Am I saying your last name right?
You got it.
Okay. Now, these two wonderful people are strangers to me. I met Shelby one time, which was lovely. And Shelby, you kind of look a lot different than when I met you,
Yeah.
whenever it was, right?
Yes.
And so I am just so happy for you. Maybe to begin, would you tell everybody who are the Crannies? Where are you from? Tell us about yourselves.
Yeah, so like I said, we're Lance and Shelby Cranny. We are from Holland, Michigan, and we have 4 kids. And I'm a stay-at-home mom to those kids and homeschool them. So.
All right, and you guys, just over the past several months, how long have you now been on the protocol?
Just 4 months. Yep.
4 months.
Yes.
So you're 4 months in.
Yep.
So 4 months ago, you did not know anything about this.
No. Well, yeah, I kind of sat back and watched for a while. So yeah, I did know, but hadn't started yet. So was very skeptical to start.
And so Lance and Shelby, maybe tell me a little bit about where were you at with your health? Where were things prior to starting the protocol?
Yeah, so I was very miserable, hopeless when it came to my health, but I had PCOS, so I had gained lots of weight rather quickly. I had lots of inflammation, so I had lots of aches and pains. I had plantar fasciitis, could hardly get out of bed in the mornings, fatty liver, brain fog, IBS with gut issues. I had severe acid reflux, so bad that I was taking digestive enzymes with each meal, extra strength meds before bed, propped up with 3 pillows and still suffering every single day, no matter what I ate, all day long. And it was absolutely miserable. And so, yeah, I had no idea that all of these separate symptoms that I thought were separate, but actually that it was, there was one main cause of it. And I didn't know that. I was just struggling with my health and didn't think I had any answers. I felt like I tried everything and nothing worked. And like I said, I was just feeling very, very miserable and real hopeless and not feeling like I had to find any answers.
Okay, so pause real fast. So if you're watching this, whether you're on the restream or here in the Zoom, if you can identify with one or more of the things that Shelby talked about, will you say me in the chat? Just say me. I want Shelby to see how many people this is resonating with. She mentioned plantar fasciitis. She mentioned PCOS. She mentioned weight gain. She mentioned fatty liver. She mentioned other things that I can't remember off the top of my head, right? But if that is you, say me in the chat, okay? And let me just say me. That was me too, okay? Here she's thinking all of this. She's thinking she's got a dozen problems. Come to find out, she didn't have a dozen problems, needing a dozen acid reflux, right? Needing a dozen medications. She just had one problem. Lance, what about you? Where were you at prior to starting?
Yeah, 4 months ago, I would do the daily grind of go to work, come home, we'd have dinner, and I would sit down on the couch and just crash out. I'd be done. Absolutely no energy. I'd sit there, 300 pounds, overweight, my ankles ached, my knees hurt, no energy, lack of confidence that I could ever change the way I was or what my future was going to look like. And the sad part was, staring down the path of diabetes ahead of me because it's very prevalent in my family, and just knowing that it was coming and not having a game plan or having any hope that I could change that. And just having these horrible nights where, I'd be sitting on the couch and my 2 young boys would come up and, Dad's home from work. Dad, let's go outside and play. Let's go fish in the pond. Let's go shoot some basketball hoops. And I found myself, 9 times out of 10 saying, you know what? Dad's tired. Let's just sit on the couch and watch some TV. And that got to the point where it was just excruciatingly painful to think that my kids were losing their dad.
Man, that's real. And I've been there. I have three daughters, and they have more energy than I do, or did.
That's for sure.
So I want to show people, you guys sent me a couple pictures here, which are just awesome. I'm going to show those in a second, but tell everybody, okay, so since starting this protocol over the last 4 months, what has happened to you? What has changed? How are you feeling now? What's going on in your lives since?
Yeah, so starting the protocol, I was very skeptical, like I said, but my good friend and neighbor, Amy Van Houten, is the one who introduced me to the product. And so I reluctantly started, knowing that I could get all of my money back because I failed at everything and any other diet that I tried. So I just felt like that was what was going to happen with this. But I decided to give it a try. And within a couple of days, I was already noticing changes, which was so motivating for me because it was quite simple what I was doing. I wasn't like struggling like I would in the past with all these other diets. And so right away, I was noticing the brain fog was going away and the energy by 3 o'clock when I was done with school with the kids, and I still had energy left. And normally that's like I was done for the day, but I was feeling like, wow, I could go out and walk or, do some extra things around the house. And so 2 weeks into the protocol, my acid reflux was gone. And that was a huge game changer for me because, like I had said, I tried everything that there was to try for reflux and nothing ever worked. And I struggled for years. And for it to be gone in 2 weeks with just drinking a few simple drinks was just amazing. And so that was a motivation for me to keep going because I knew this was real. But so yeah, just continuing energy. And then, so now 4 months in, I've lost 45 pounds and the inflammation is going away and just everything is reversing. And I just feel so much better, like just so much energy. And like I said, I still have a long journey to go with my weight and some of my health, but this is the first time ever that that I feel hope. And that's such a freeing feeling that I failed at so many things and plans in the past, but to be able to just know that this is so simple and I found the answer, and just know if I continue with this protocol that I will actually be able to completely heal and meet that goal. And that's just an awesome feeling.
I love it. You're getting a lot of love in the chat right now, guys. This is awesome. And we're almost out of time. But Lance, anything you would add? What's it done for you? And then maybe I'll show these pictures if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, it's been life changing. I went into this very skeptical. The one thing that I've told lots of people is when I started this, the protocol, claims, lots of claims that it could do all these amazing things for me. And I really wanted to see the protocol do the heavy lifting. I wasn't going to go on a crash diet. I wasn't going to count calories. I wasn't going to go to the gym. I wasn't going to run on the treadmill. I was going to let the protocol do what it said it could and see if it actually worked. And that's what I did. Just worked the protocol, did what you're supposed to do. And now look at us, 4 months later, I'm pushing on 50 pounds being down. My blood sugar's in great shape, tons of energy. I'm able to get up every night, go play with my kids and run around, be crazy with them. They've got their dad back. I mean, that's huge for me. It's life-changing.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. I'm just sitting here because this is what it's all about. We do this because we want to make life better. And it is awesome to hear your stories. Guys, real fast, I'm just going to share a brief picture. We don't have a ton of time, so I just want to show this because it's quite incredible. So we've got Shelby, noticeable difference. In fact, this looks like it could be your daughter on the right. It's just awesome, right? And then here is Lance, right? Coming up on 50 pounds in just 4 months. So collectively, you guys have lost about 90 pounds over 4 months. Blood sugar's better, acid reflux is gone, and that is what it is all about. Thank you so much, Lance and Shelby Cranny, for being our testimonial today. You guys are awesome, and we're very happy for you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trent.
Thank you so much. Okay. Well, that's a little scary to come out in front of 500 plus strangers, right? And talk about your struggles. But the good news is they're overcoming them. They're beating them, right? And we want to help everyone do that. And that's why we do these calls. Now, I am going to do things a little differently today. So we have one of the top metabolic health experts in the world, and I'm not exaggerating, on tonight's call. And she is prepared to talk all about GLP-1. Now, this is a very hot topic worldwide right now. You have Ozempic and Mounjaro and tirzepatide and a bunch of other Wegovy, right? You have a bunch of other GLP-1 products that are being used, synthetic GLP-1 products that are being used to help eliminate food noise, right? The goal being that if I struggle with food noise and appetite, if I can just kill my appetite, I won't want to eat. And if I stop eating, then I can lose weight and all my numbers will improve, right? How do you feel about that? And in some cases, this may be exactly what somebody needs, right? And I'm not here to debate any medical professionals or anything like that. In fact, we have so many people tonight from the medical community that are on our call, and many of them use medications from time to time. And so we don't want this to ever come off as a, doctor bashing or medication. The doctors are life-saving and the drugs can be life-saving. But we also want, and doctors also want, awareness about natural alternatives that may be safer, may be equally effective, and may actually solve the root cause of the problem, and so that we can fix it once and for all. And this type of freedom, like Lance talked about, where he's not on a crash diet, he's not counting calories, he hasn't eliminated something from his diet, he's not living in the gym, he's just living life and letting the protocol do the heavy lifting. We want to tell you about that and what that looks like. So I'm going to spend a few minutes explaining exactly what we're doing. And I'm going to give you a lot, and I mean a lot of proof that this is working fantastically. And then I want to bring in, again, our guest tonight, Lindsay Venn, who's going to be teaching about GLP-1 and how this could be used in addition to or instead of many of the drugs that people are using. And this could be potentially life-saving for somebody who is in the throes of this, right? So let's do it that way tonight. We'll see how that goes. We're always willing to experiment, aren't we? And so we're going to experiment a little bit. And I'm going to bring back this picture for a moment. All right. So let's look at this picture. All right. Now, I want to ask you some questions. When you look at the problems that you see here, do any of them stand out or resonate with you? Is there anything here that you struggle with? Maybe put it in the chat, or maybe it's somebody in your family, maybe a loved one, maybe a spouse, maybe a sibling, maybe it's your uncle, right? I was just at a family reunion for Christmas, and I have family members who I love and care about. In fact, most of my family members who I love and care about that are over the age of 45 or so have one or more of these problems, right? So we see this everywhere. We see it everywhere. It is all around us. And these problems are actually not just, annoyances. This is actually killing us, right? I mean, heart disease is the #1 killer in the world, right? Diabetes completely hijacks somebody's life. And for the rest of their lives, every time they eat, they're having to watch their sugars or inject insulin, right? Or at least that's how it used to be. And so I want you to think about this, and I don't want you to think about the words. I mean, don't think about the word diabetes. Think about the people. Think about the people you love and care about who are suffering from this, right? I think about my dad, who I talked about. My dad had like half of these, right? So I want you to imagine for a moment that there was a solution to the root problem. If the root problem is this problem of insulin resistance, what if you could solve this problem? Well, we know, all the brightest and best doctors know, that if you could solve the problem of insulin resistance, you would actually solve a lot of these other problems. So let's just dream for a little bit. Let's say that you found a solution that was guaranteed to work, that if anybody tried it and stuck with it, they could get rid of this problem. How many lives could you save? How many lives could we save? Let's say we patented that sucker. We owned the technology. Nobody could copy it. And it worked like clockwork, right? We could save like 1 billion people from premature death. We could literally make life better for the entire planet. right? Well, we do these calls every week because we want to tell you that there actually is a solution to this problem. It's actually not a new thing, and yet nobody, and I mean nobody, is talking about it. Now, if you want my personal kind of conspiracy opinion, it's because there is a lot of money in the outside of this circle. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of big business in the outside of this circle. And if somebody solves the problem that facilitates the outside of the circle, that may not be good for everyone, right? And so, in the spirit of awareness, we do these calls because we want to tell you that there is actually a solution. Some of you may remember a company known as Rexall. Remember the old Rexall drugstores, right? Rexall drugs used to be the biggest pharmacy in the world. Well, Rexall came out with this product or this protocol, right? This has now been studied by the Cleveland Clinic. It's been studied by the University of Sydney. There's a bunch of institutions that have studied it. There are 5 patents on it. There are 20 plus clinical studies. It is safe. It is natural. It is guaranteed. It actually saves more than it costs. It's cost neutral. And it's available in more than 50 different countries, and yet nobody is talking about it. If my dad would have known about this, he would be alive today. And this is not just for sick people, because even healthy people, even lean people, even muscular people, many of them struggle with some of these symptoms, right? So what if there was a solution, a natural one with no drugs? And that is what we have, okay? Now, the protocol is pretty simple. We'll spend a little bit more time on this later after Lindsay explains some of the science, right? But it's pretty simple. And this is something that I've been using now, and many of the people on the call have been using. This is what Shelby and Lance have been using, right? It's very simple. There are 2 parts to the protocol. Part number 1 is something whenever you are not eating. So when you're not eating, there is something you can sip called Unimate. And this Unimate raises GLP-1 dramatically, but it does it naturally. It makes me forget about food. I can fast forever. So I sip this whenever, and you don't have to sip it. Some people chug it, but I like to sip it. I sip this whenever I'm not eating. So simple. Do you have a go-to drink? Some people do their Diet Pepsi, their Diet Coke, their Coke Zero, their Mountain Dew. Maybe it's a sugar coffee from Starbucks. Maybe you're a vitamin, whatever, right? If you like having something to drink, this is something you can drink that can change your whole life. Then, just before eating, there is a blend of plant fiber before eating that you can take just before your meals. Now, this blend of plant fiber, okay, this is going to change the world, or change healthcare at least, in my humble opinion. Why do I say that? Because this actually often works as well as, and sometimes even better than, a statin for lowering cholesterol, but it's natural. This often works as well as, and sometimes better than, metformin for lowering blood sugar, right? This actually is the only natural, clinically proven, and patented alternative to some of these drugs that is listed in the physician's desk reference. So your doctor can look it up. Your doctor will say, well, geez, I've never heard of this stuff. I don't know. I'm leery of anything like that, right? Okay, doctor, just look it up. Go to the PDR. In fact, if you're a medical professional on this call, if you're a doctor, if you're a nurse, if you're maybe a nutritionist or a dietitian, would you put medical? If you work in the medical field, would you put medical in the chat? We have so many doctors, so many nurses, diabetes educators, nutritionists, dietitians that are learning about this protocol and are recommending this, and only this in some cases, for people with these problems. And sometimes it's this in addition to some of the medications that are needed, right? So how does it work? It's so simple. You've got breakfast, you've got lunch, you've got dinner. Most people do some intermittent fasting with the Unimate. They sip it in the morning. Instead of eating a big breakfast, they eat their love handles for breakfast. They fast through breakfast. And the Unimate makes that easy. Then before at least their largest meal each day, they'll have a packet of the fiber, right? But just picture this. I mean, it is cost neutral. If instead of eating breakfast, or what does a meal cost? That you can't get breakfast at McDonald's for $5, right? Let's say you save the $5 to $10 on a meal each day. that covers the cost of the protocol because it only costs about $5 per day, right? So this is what we've been doing. It's in the PDR. I can show you study after study after study that prove that this is going to be disruptive to the pharmaceutical world. There are no drugs in it. It is safe, it is effective, it is guaranteed to work. Okay. Now, normally I would go through a bunch of testimonials. We're doing it a little bit different tonight. And so I would ask for just a quick favor. Okay. If you or somebody in your household has been using this product, if you've been using this product and you have noticed a measurable positive improvement, I don't want you to exaggerate, okay? Just what has it done for you, whether you've been on it for a month or for a year or maybe 6 months or 90 or 4 months, like the crannies, right? If you could put a note in the chat so that all the people on the sidelines, all the new people here can see what it is doing for people on this protocol. I just want to read a few of these and then I want to get to our special guest. So I'm going to scroll down. Okay. Wow. These are coming in faster than I can read them. Okay. So here we go. Alan Kashner. This has reversed my diabetes and my fatty liver. I am off 6 meds. I have lost 72 pounds. Wow, Alan, that's incredible. Zoom user says my knee pain is gone. Derek Henderson says my dad's A1C is down from a 13.5 to a 6.9. Shanna Husson says I've lost 10 pounds. My LDL is down 43 points. Scott Harker says I've lost 40 pounds in 16 weeks. Maureen Doyle says my lower LDL by 40 points in just 2 months. My brain fog is gone. My inflammation is gone. Mark Workman says his psoriasis is cleared up. Renee says 2 years on the protocol. I'm off my meds. No vertigo. Lost 100 pounds. Leanne says I've lost weight. My aches and pains are gone. My brain fog is gone. Stephen Hansen says 45 pounds down. I feel amazing. Chopper Otero, hey Chopper, says 44 pounds down. I've reversed my type 2, helping me with PTSD. Stephanie Watson, what's up, Stephanie Watson? Says 21 pounds down. Brain fog is gone. Depression gone. Joint pain gone. Menopause symptoms gone. Sue Featherland says released about 15 pounds. All right, Sue. Amber says down 18 pounds in 55 days. Jason Knight lost 40 pounds in 3 months. Daniel Santos, 3 days on it. I'm a coffee addict. I have not drinking coffee in 3 days. I'm down 5 pounds. Amazing, Daniel. Lost weight, says Danelle. Energy, focus, clarity. What's up, Danelle? Paul Thorup, my mom has reversed her prediabetes and has lost 10 pounds of stubborn fat. Gail Stinson, 8 months on the protocol, down 20 pounds. Brian Delott says it has increased my mood and my energy. Barbara Wilson, losing fat, it's noticeable. I'm just going to read a couple more. There are 64 additional comments. Zoom user says 2 weeks on, my brain fog is better. Gregory Smith says I've lost 20 pounds in the last 4 weeks. Holy cow. Jennifer Ellis says I'm off my statin, my insomnia and depression meds after 16 years. Tinnitus and arthritis are gone, down 31 pounds. Just maybe 2 more. John Salyer says, 4 años saludable sin tiroides. I don't know what that means. Doing my best to read Spanish. Chet Hoop says down 80 pounds, no meds, 68 years. Down 80 pounds, no meds, 68 years old. Derek Henderson, my testosterone levels went from 159 to 422. Simone Johnson says, tomorrow will be 1 week on the protocol. I've lost 7 pounds. Okay, awesome. One more. Katie Hoffman, I've lost 95 pounds. I've reversed prediabetes. I'm off 9 medications and have been on maintenance for over a year. There are 62 additional comments that I do not have time to read. But as you can see, this works. It really, really works. And there is no magic to this, okay? There's no magic. It's just science. When you get the right types of fiber, you control things like blood sugar, insulin resistance, cholesterol, triglycerides. As you feed the gut microbiome, all the healthy prebiotic fibers, all the things that were broken with the gut start to work again, or may start to work again, right? I don't want to make this sound like it's just a cure-all, right? It's not. There's nothing magic about it, right? But when you feed the gut the right types of fibers, the gut can heal. It can reverse some of the damage that's been done, right? And then the mate is like, I mean, I I look forward to this every day. I'm drinking some right now, right? I have multiple per day because it blocks out the food noise. It helps me feel clear and focused and productive. It puts me in a good mood. And instead of snacking on peanut M&Ms all day like I used to and drinking Diet Cokes and Diet Pepsis, I now feel like I'm in total control and healthier than I've ever been. So, um, with all of that being said, that is a little bit about the protocol. Now I want to get to our real expert tonight. This is one of the top experts in the world. She is the one of the founding members for the Metabolic Society of Healthcare Practitioners. She helps run Insulin IQ. If you're familiar with Insulin IQ, she has Venn Integrative. Is it Venn Integrative Health or Venn Integrative Nutrition?
Medicine, but yeah.
Then integrative medicine, okay? Third time's the charm. And Lindsay literally works all day, every day with the brightest and best in the world, helping people change their metabolic health, get off their meds when possible, and minimizes suffering. I mean, she is a real life superhero. And Lindsay's going to be talking all about GLP-1 and natural alternatives to it. So, Lindsay, take it away.
You're always too kind, Trent. Thank you so much. And thank you to the crannies for their story, because it's a fantastic story. And we always appreciate the testimonials of where people can get with this. So let me share my screen. As you guys know, I'm very presentation heavy. It makes it hopefully a little bit more educational for everybody when it comes to the topic. And so like Trent said, tonight we're deep diving into GLP-1 hormone. Like he said, you can find me either at Insulin IQ, where I work with Ben Bickman and several others, or Venn Integrative Medicine, just for me. So first, GLP-1 hormone. And for anybody who doesn't know, when I'm saying GLP-1, like Trent said, I'm talking about all these new medications. The Mounjaro, Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, semaglutide, tirzepatide, there's a variety of names for them. Those are the agonists, but what I'm talking about today is the actual hormone that is produced in the body naturally. And this is a really important hormone that should never be villainized. It's essential for life. It's essential for everything that we do. And it's something that we really want to bring to the forefront as a beneficial hormone if we can do it naturally and in a way that's beneficial without some of the negative side effects. So first of all, it is a peptide hormone, and peptide is another hot buzzword that you'll hear nowadays, but it's a peptide hormone, just like insulin, just like leptin. There's several peptide hormones that are familiar to most of you, but it is made in the gut naturally for everybody. It does several things that are very, very important. Like Trent said, to help reverse insulin resistance, it will improve our insulin sensitivity. It will shut down that food noise that he was talking about with the Unimate, for example. It'll help lower some inflammation in the body, which is a primary driver of insulin resistance. It'll lower glucagon. Glucagon is the counterpart to insulin. Insulin tries to bring blood sugar down. Glucagon tries to bring blood sugar up. And so to have lower glucagon helps with blood sugar regulation. And then also it's going to improve our satiety levels. But again, I really want to point out, and this is a strong driver in the conversation today, there's two things I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the hormone GLP-1 that we produce in the body versus the agonist of the medications that you can take either injectably or orally. Agonist is the opposite of antagonist. And so agonist works to mimic something versus an antagonist would work against it. So these are mimicking what GLP-1 should be doing. They're not the true hormone. They're a synthetic agonist to GLP-1. So where does the agonist fit in? So it's not a peptide hormone that is made in the gut. I crossed that off intentionally. So this is a hormone that you can inject, or an agonist that you can inject, that is what we would call an exogenous, coming from outside of the body, that you can give yourself to do all of the same things: the insulin sensitivity, the food cravings, the inflammation, the glucagon, and the satiety. So they are beneficial because they do all these things, but they're not natural. And that's the point that we're trying to drive home here tonight. So where did they come from, and why did we start using them? Well, way back in the day, I've been a dietitian for over 30 years, and I started using some of these drugs probably 20 years ago in patients with diabetes and prediabetes, because they are beneficial for all of those things I just checked off in the list. They were a diabetic medication that has morphed into something else, let's say. So back in the day, the drug that we used very commonly was one called Bydureon or Byetta. It was an injectable, just like the ones we have today, but it's a different formulation. and it comes in a lower dose. And so it is a different medication. So here you can see it's exenatide, which is different than semaglutide, which we have in things like Ozempic and Wegovy. And so they are different. They were used for different purposes, and they had very different results. The patients that we had on things like Bydureon back in the day didn't have these massive weight loss results that we're seeing today. So we get into now, and I hope this picture doesn't offend anybody, but everyone sees them all day long, every day on any social media. The weight loss piece of this has far overtaken the diabetes benefit when it comes to what people are focusing on. It has been just astronomically promoted by all the big speakers in the world. So the current medications that we're focusing on are these top 4 are the ones. So Ozempic and Wegovy are what we call semaglutide. That's the generic name for it. And Mounjaro and Zepbound are tirzepatide. The difference between these medications is that Ozempic and Mounjaro are specific only for diabetes, and Wegovy and Zepbound are specific for weight loss. They did this, the FDA approved this because they knew they'd be able to sell more, in my opinion, but they did this to target different audiences. The piece I want to keep in mind here is like Ozempic, for example, it has a 2.0 milligram max dose per week. Wegovy, for the weight loss, has a 2.4 milligram max dose per week. And I find it very interesting that the max dose is higher in people that are just working to lose their weight versus people who are trying to cure a chronic disease. But I'm going to point to these numbers later, so I wanted to point them out here a little bit earlier. The point that I like to drive home when I'm talking with my patients who come to me, I have at least half of the patients I see, if not more, come to me for weight loss. That is their main driver to come to see me. And when I have these conversations, I give them full informed consent. And I'm going to say, okay, if you just do diet and exercise, this is what you can expect. If you use supplements, this is what you can expect. If you use traditional medications like metformin, this is what you can expect. Or if you go on to these injectables or even the oral medications, this is what you can expect. And I would say at least 95% of my patients that are on this suffer with constipation. It's a real prominent problem for my patients. Nausea and vomiting are also extremely common when they're on these medications, but even more severe complications like gastroparesis is when the stomach actually cannot empty, so the food remains in the stomach for too long. This is why you'll hear, like, if you're going to have a surgery, they now ask on the standard form, are you on one of these medications? Because you have to stop it at least 2 weeks prior to your surgery, because you probably still have food in your stomach because of the delayed gastric emptying side effect, or it's actually the true pathophysiology of these medications that's why they work, is that you hold food in your stomach longer. Ileus can be a problem. This is a paralyzation of a portion of the intestinal tract, and this can actually be a fatal complication that can occur. But I'm also now starting to see in some of my patients complaints of vision loss, definitely seeing things like bone loss and muscle wasting. And so I always like to point out side effects of these medications are real, and therefore exploring alternatives is something that we're really pretty passionate about. So I stole this off of Ben. You can all see Ben's lovely bald head over here. He's in Korea right now speaking for Unicity at the moment, and he shared these with me. But when we look at the studies that have been done on these medications and the results that they're having, they're pretty impactful. So this one was a 2-year study of the weight loss version of these medications. And what they were looking at was the food noise. What are people craving? What are they experiencing? And what is this resulting in when it comes to the benefit of taking these medications? So at week 20, they actually compared it here to baseline. The 0 number here is baseline. If they had their normal day-to-day prior to any medication cravings, they were at 0. When they started the medication, they had a decrease, obviously, in their food noise, which was great. I'm sure all these people were losing weight. Week 52, that crept back just a little bit, but by year 2, week 104, they were pretty much back to baseline. And this has been probably the biggest problem that we've seen with this medication. And I'm going to dive a little deeper into this. One of other Ben's slides that I just pulled here too was, yeah, from these injections with the additional risks, there was a total return of sweet cravings at about the 2-year mark. And so they're not foolproof when it comes to having long-term lasting effect. So what happens when these people stop these medications? And this study goes in and it shows the fact that yes, over about 2 years, again, this is a 2-year study that they looked at, people were actually starting to stop the medication for a variety of reasons. They didn't feel good, they stopped being effective, they weren't covered by insurance anymore, whatever the reason, these people stopped actually taking these medications. And what happened? And so in this study, they did a 68-week treatment phase. And during this 68 weeks, they noticed significant weight loss compared to placebo, which is sitting up here. So they lost a significant amount of weight. I'm going to just say 50 pounds. Let's say this group of people lost on average 50 pounds in 68 weeks, and then they stopped the medication. And what happened? They regained about 80% of the weight back. Let's say they still had a 10% differential here or a 10-pound differential when it comes back. So they lost 10 pounds overall in this phase, in this period, but regained 40 pounds of it back. Well, what part did they gain back? If we know, and I didn't share this slide, I should have put it in here, but we know that about 40% of the weight loss is not fat. It is lean body mass, whether it be bone or muscle or connective tissue. 40% of this weight loss, clear down here in this 50 pounds, was not fat mass. Well, we all know when we regain muscle, especially as we regain weight, especially if we're a little bit older, it's really hard to regain muscle mass and nearly impossible to regain bone mass. And so there is this reminder of mind the gap. If you lose the weight and regain the weight, it may not be beneficial in the long run because overall percent body fat is the same or worse, while muscle mass and bone density are worse. But GLP-1 hormone is good. This is the one thing I want to say. I'm not villainizing GLP-1 hormone here. GLP-1 hormone is really, really important and really, really beneficial when it comes to what we want to do to improve metabolic health. And so Ben, thankfully, has actually conducted studies in his lab at BYU on this product. And that's why I am in such good support of this product, is because they found with the Unamate, for example, there was a 60% increase in natural production of GLP-1. Huge, huge benefit that we haven't really seen with any other natural supplement out there. The balance that Trent was talking about also is extremely important. The cells in the intestine that actually produce GLP-1 are called L cells. And in Ben's study, it shows that it highlights the importance of dietary fiber, particularly fiber, also protein, to maintain L cell secretion and intestinal integrity. Again, Trent was talking about that. If you have leaky gut or dysbiosis or something along those lines, fiber, prebiotic, probiotic fiber is essential, and that's exactly what balance does for us. But I have 2 questions, and I have asked these questions to Ben, and I'm going to ask them here. Not that anybody else is going to have the answer either, because we don't, maybe someone does, but my 2 questions are this. Number 1, can someone become resistant to these GLP-1 exogenous medications and problems? It is a peptide hormone. And some other peptide hormones that I mentioned earlier are insulin and leptin. And we know for a fact you can become very resistant to these. I oftentimes, when I'm talking with my patients, I talk to them about, I use beer as the example. You know, at the beginning of an alcohol journey, 1 beer will get you a buzz. After a while, you have to have 2 beers. After a while, you have to have 6 beers, and so on and so forth. And that's because you become resistant or tolerant to the effects of the alcohol. Same thing happens with insulin. Same thing happens with GLP-1, in my opinion. I asked Ben this question. We don't for sure know the answer, but you can become resistant. And this is really kind of proven because patients need to increase the dose over time in order for it to remain effective. It's just like having to increase the number of beers you need for a buzz. You have to increase the amount that you're giving of these medications to keep it effective. Same with insulin. My insulin dependent diabetics, if they stay on a high carbohydrate diet, if they're snacking on sugar all day, they give more insulin, they become more resistant, they need more and more and more insulin over time. Again, I am not villainizing any of these hormones. They're all very, very helpful and critical for health for a healthy life, but we want them in ideal amounts. We don't want them in superhuman amounts. We don't want them above and beyond what they want them to be. And really, when I asked Ben this question, he said, there's no proof, but it's extremely likely that the resistant effect is possible for GLP-1. So my next question is when I give a man, I use this as an example, when I give a man testosterone replacement therapy, it shuts down the testes. He can't make testosterone anymore. Does the same thing happen when I give somebody GLP-1 agonist? Will they stop producing their own GLP-1 hormone? We don't know. The same thing happens with thyroid. If I give someone a thyroid medication, because there's plenty of thyroid hormone in the body, the thyroid doesn't have to make its own thyroid anymore. Does this happen with GLP-1 when we give it exogenously? Again, Ben's answer to this was, I don't know, but it's likely. And so the question then is, does it return to normal after we've given exogenous GLP-1? We don't know. Does boosting endogenous meaning our natural production inside the body, does boosting GLP-1 help people come off of these meds and return the body to normal and have the ability to make its own GLP-1 like it's supposed to? And again, my answer and Ben's answer, and I've seen it in practice with my own patients, yes. If a man wants to come off testosterone, I give him something like clomiphene or HCG, and it helps them make their own more. That's where this product really can come into play, is that we can help you make more of your own, even if you shut off your own production by using one of these medications for a period of time. The answer, though, is we just don't know. There's no research out there to prove it, but there's certainly good theories and certainly good questions to leave to the research arm of my team. So just to kind of drive it home, there's two options here. We have synthetic and we have natural. The problem with the synthetic, in my opinion and Ben's opinion, is they are superhuman doses. Yes, you can microdose these and still get great benefit without the side effects. Most doctors, most providers do not microdose these medications. You can do it. I encourage people to avoid superhuman dosing no matter what it is they do. Remember, the side effects are real. They are something that we do want to try to avoid. Things like the vision loss, the gastroparesis, the loss of muscle, the osteoporosis, etc. Now, if we do it naturally, we can optimize these levels, and they're not going to be superhuman doses. We're not going to be able to elevate GLP-1 to the same extent that you can with a medication, but you can optimize them, just like we can optimize a whole lot of things like in our metabolic health with diet, lifestyle, and other supplements. There's few to no side effects. We're still going to improve our insulin sensitivity and our glucagon. And yes, you can even do this without any supplements. You don't have to necessarily use the Feel Great system. It just makes it easier. But even just improving protein, lowering insulin, and increasing fiber naturally can improve GLP-1 in a very natural way. So my opinion is, why risk it? There's no reason not to try this product first. It does come with a 90-day money-back guarantee, like the Crannies had mentioned before. And so my attitude is why risk it? The conversations I have with my patients on a one-to-one basis is, start with the one that is going to do the least harm. If necessary, we progress to the ones that might carry some risk. So there you go, Trent. Oops, there's that one. Thank you, everybody.
So wait, Lindsay, I want you to leave that up for just a moment here, because if somebody needs to get in touch with Lindsay Venn, if they have questions, if they want to get blood work done, if they need an expert to look at their situation, maybe they need a second opinion, maybe they don't have a medical provider, Lindsay, they can look you up on Venn Integrative Medicine and reach out and get your help.
Absolutely. I'm looking for clients as we speak. So
All right. Well, guys, I cannot recommend anybody more highly than I would recommend Lindsay Venn for this. If you are confused about your blood work, if you're stuck, if you're frustrated, if you're trying to improve your health, or for any reason need a good medical professional to evaluate your situation, answer questions, please reach out to Lindsay. Lindsay is so kind to do these calls from time to time voluntarily. You know, we're not paying her to do this. She's one of the top experts in the world, and she's here because she believes in it and wants to make life better. Now, Lindsay, I'm going to keep you right here. I'm going to share my screen for just a moment. We're going to answer some questions, okay? But first, before we answer those questions, I want to thank everybody who chimed in when I asked, hey, if this has done something for you, would you put something in the chat? I mean, we had probably no less than 100, maybe 120 people, something like that, say this has changed my life, right? And I just want to tell you from at a very personal level, this has changed my life. This has been a game changer for me. This has taken somebody that has struggled with food most of my life, struggled with overeating, struggled with snacking, always on a diet. If I'm not on a diet, I am gaining weight. And for the last 3.5 years of my life, I have not been on a diet. It is the most liberating thing to say and to even think about. Okay. I have eaten regular food. I eat lunch every day. I eat dinner every day. If you've seen my videos, if you see me talk about this, I love good food. But by simply doing the Unimate in the morning and the balance before my meals, it has changed everything. And so, what if this could do for you what it did for the 100+ people that made a comment? What if this could be the thing that worked for you and that really fixed your problem once and for all? What else would happen to you if your health wasn't a problem anymore? What else would happen if instead of feeling sick, you felt productive? Instead of being low energy, you had high energy. Instead of struggling up the stairs, you could zip up the stairs, right? And why not try something that pays for itself in most cases and is guaranteed to work? I mean, if you try it for 90 days and you go do your blood work and you're not totally satisfied, just get a refund, right? So if you're watching this and you're not yet on the protocol, before we answer a couple of questions, I would just tell you to do this. Whoever invited you to this call, I want you to send them a message right now that says, send me the link. Okay? Send me the link. Whoever invited you to this call, ask them to send you the link to order the protocol because the link that they're going to send you will give you this discounted price and you'll lock in the discount. We want you to lock in that discount forever. All right? When you order it, you will get your own the link, your link, and anybody that you share it with will get the same price from your link. It's simple. That's how the referral program works. You pay the discount forward to another person, and if you refer anybody, you'll get a $10 discount for each of the people you refer so that your product could become cheaper and cheaper each month. That's how it works. It's beautiful, it's simple, and it is a great way to share the health. All right. So say send me the link if you haven't started the protocol. Now, Lindsay, Venn, we have a couple questions for you that I want to get to before we wrap up this call. One of the questions was, let me find it. They said, I want to just go off tirzepatide and try this instead. If a person is on a GLP-1, whether it's a tirzepatide or an Ozempic or a Wegovy or a Mounjaro, what happens? If can they go cold turkey? Do they need to wean off? Should that be handled with their doctor? Should they book an appointment with Lindsay? What do you recommend in that regard?
It really depends on the dose. If someone's on the full dose of one of these medications, they do need to do it with a plan in mind. I would not cold turkey stop at a high dose. If you're on a microdose, yes, you could go ahead and cold turkey. But yeah, it needs to be thoughtful and planned out if you're on one of these higher doses, but it can be done actually quite quickly.
For that matter, Lindsay, there's lots of people that use this as an alternative, a natural alternative to their statin. Maybe they don't want to be on the statin and they'd rather do it natural. And so they want to quit the statin and do this. Maybe they want to quit the metformin and do this. Maybe they want to quit something and do this. We obviously want to be responsible, and you're not their doctor. I'm not a doctor. And so, we typically encourage people to work with their doctor and discuss that with their doctor. Is there any advice you'd have? What does that conversation with their doctor look like?
Yeah, typically it all comes back down to why they're taking it. If you're only on a statin because you have high cholesterol, there's a lot of other things that can be evaluated, a calcium score, for example, to evaluate if you truly need it or not. And then what other risk factors might be present. But this supplement, I hate statins, you know that. And so I always encourage this instead. But yeah, if somebody can follow the dietary recommendations that we give and follow the protocol pretty darn well, coming off those medications is a reality.
Okay. Tony Cristiano says, would I be able to get off insulin with this tea? I think he means with this product or protocol. Tony, are you a type 1 diabetic or a type 2 diabetic? That would be my first question. What would you say to that, Lindsay?
Yeah, that's exactly the question. And sadly, there's a upcoming phenomenon too called LADA, which is latent autoimmune diabetes of adulthood. So really important before you try to come off your insulin that you get your C-peptide and insulin measured, particularly C-peptide if you're on insulin, just to make sure you're making your own.
Let's maybe ask the audience real fast. If you have been on this protocol and used to be using insulin for type 2 diabetes and are now not using any insulin, could you maybe make a comment in the chat? I realize that might be hard for you to do. Maybe you're driving, don't want to put you in danger. But if you are a type 2 diabetic that was using insulin for a year or 10 years or 20 years or 50 years and could tell us if what your situation is, that may be helpful to Tony. And Tony, I don't know if you're type 1 or type 2. Natalie says, what is the protocol? So the protocol is this protocol that we've been talking about, the Unimate and the balance. Unimate when you're not eating, balance before your meals. It's very, very simple. Deborah says, my wife used to be on insulin, now just drinking the tea. Tony says a type 2 diabetic, been on insulin for 23 years. I know John Cox was on ours and said he is completely off insulin. He's had more than 20,000 insulin shots in his life. No more insulin. Susan Alford says, I've reversed my type 2 diabetes after being 14 years diabetic. Jim Ciccarelli, what's up, Jim? Says, I'm completely off my metformin after 15 years. So anyways,
Well,
that's
and I had too, trying just to interrupt, I had a patient that I met through Insulin IQ about 8 weeks ago. He was completely off insulin within 4 weeks of changing his diet and using the product. And so it is possible. You just need to do it with support from your doctor or from me.
Lindsay, question from Lisa Payne. Liza Payne, can you take this while nursing and let's
Yes,
say while pregnant?
100%.
Okay, great. One other question that came in. I have POTS. Sorry, I had. Oh, sorry. This is more of a testimonial than a question. My bad.
There was one higher up that was a good one that your wife, I think, labeled. Yeah, it was
Oh,
another one of the, do I need to taper off? Yes, if you're on a GLP-1 injectable of any kind, if you're on the highest dose, you definitely need to taper off.
okay, here's a couple really good questions. Brenda Eller says, I have noticed that I've had some low sugar readings where I had to eat. So she's on the protocol. She's noticing low blood sugar. What would you say to that, Lindsay?
Well, the first question I would ask is, are they truly low blood sugars? Because typically we don't experience low blood sugar unless we're on a medication to cause it. The symptoms of low blood sugar are real even when you don't have truly low blood sugar. It's that peak and then the crash that happens rapidly after it is where you have the symptoms. And so my recommendation would be to make sure you check your blood sugar at the time where you feel like they're low and make sure that they're actually low before going and eating something.
Yeah, and one of the reasons, so there's the Unimate that we sip when we're fasting and not eating. The other one is something called balance. So you take a little bit of water, and this is the blend of fiber called balance. All right. You can literally, I keep it in my back pocket, I keep some at my desk, I keep some in my car, I keep some in my backpack or my briefcase, I keep some in my carry-on bag. I have it everywhere. So when it's time to eat, I will shake up a packet of this. And it's called balance because it balances the blood sugar. It prevents it from getting too high and also from getting too low. It balances it. It slows the digestion of the carbohydrates and the glucose. So you mix it up like this and you just drink it while it's nice and thin like that. You drink it right before your meals. It is that simple. It's so, so easy. Okay, two more good questions here. What about constipation when taking the balance? Why would somebody be getting constipated?
Drink more water. It's fiber is good, but fiber without water is, I tell people, it creates bricks. And so lots of water with your fiber.
Now, you're still going to have the same, it's not like you're going to mix your fiber up in a gallon of water. This is going to be the same. But throughout the day, I think is what you're saying, Lindsay, be really well hydrated, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And then sometimes people will start with maybe half a packet if they're experiencing some constipation just to get their body used to it. Okay, there was a couple more. What will happen if you don't taper off a high dose of Ozempic?
In my experience, what happens is there's ravenous hunger cravings that come back. And so you can certainly try. I mean, there's not any harm unless you have a blood sugar concern with the diabetes situation, but it's typically that the hunger cravings come back full force.
Okay. Brenda says that it was the middle of the night, 3:30 in the morning, and her blood sugar was 69. She is on insulin. Okay, you
Yeah.
already required that. Okay, so here's one more. I just started, and this is a great question. I'm going to add a little bit of color to this question, but Daniel Santos says, I just started. My sugar had been high. I'm not on any medication. How long until I see results? I've been fasting 22 hours, eating one meal. Let me add some color. What do you say to people? Maybe they're type 2 diabetic and they start the protocol and they're fasting and their blood sugar's high. Well, how can it be high? I mean, they haven't eaten anything, but their blood sugar's high while they're fasting. What is happening?
Well, we do store glucose, and so glucose in the form of glycogen in both our liver and our muscle. And when you're not bringing it in your mouth, your body wants it because it's used to having higher levels. So it is going to start dumping that glucose into the bloodstream, leading to those higher blood sugars.
Dangerous or natural?
Natural. And it's okay. We want to empty those reserves.
Okay, so over time, those numbers should trend lower and lower as those reserves are depleted, and then there's not so much sugar hiding in my body in nooks and crannies.
Correct.
She is one of the best in the world. And Lindsay Venn, thank you so much. One last shout out for you to maybe put your contact info in the chat. If anybody wants to reach out to Lindsay, they'll know where to find her. Guys, I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. Thank you, Lindsay Venn. Thank you, Shelby and Lance Cranny. And thank you to all of you who invite people. I mean, you did this. You got 500 plus people on this call and thousands more on the restream. If somebody that you love, there's a person who you love and care about, who is struggling, who is suffering, and who really you want to make life better for. Invite them to the same call next week and they will thank you later. All right, guys, thanks for being on the call. Have a great night. A lot of fun.